Welcome to The Inevitable, a podcast by MotorTrend.
Hi there, and welcome to The Inevitable. This is MotorTrend's podcast, our vodcast about the future of the automobile, the future of the car, the future of tires. That's right. Even though this is essentially about, EVs and hydrogen cars and all that kind of fun stuff, we gotta talk about what, no matter what the powertrain is, what are they rolling on? And it turns out it's tires. And so
round, black, no
things.
moving parts, yet crazy high technology, as you will find out.
Yeah, and the guy talking to you, that's Ed Lowe. Before we get started with our guest, Ed, has a special message just for you.
The Inevitable podcast is brought to you by the all-electric Nissan Ariya, inspired by the future, designed for the now. And right now, we actually have a question in the episode, and it's a good one. It's a long one. It's a complicated one.
Uh-oh.
I don't think Johnny's going to have an answer for this, but I actually found an answer. It comes from the man, the myth, the legend, Colin Fish. He emailed us. He said, I have a question about fleet EV vehicles, fleet EVs. I work as a general contractor, and I'm provided a fleet vehicle allowance. However, gas is only covered for this vehicle. There are no offers to cover the cost of electricity if I were to buy an EV. An EV would be perfect for most of my commutes, but I am disincentivized from buying an EV due to the cost that I would be responsible for. What are EV manufacturers doing to potentially track the charging costs associated with fleet vehicles?
Interesting
Especially
question.
home charging. I would think manufacturers like Ford and GM would want a piece of this market and would be incentivized to try to make this happen.
Well, before...
and he said, I love the show and the guests you've had on. Please keep up with the good work. Thank you, Colin, for the question. Johnny, what are you going to say?
I would just say, before we get to... I know... Two things I would say. One is I know Ford has thought about this because Ford thinks about everything in terms of work vehicles. Like they're very Ford work truck. They actually have separate dealerships just for fleet stuff. But two, I would say, talk to your employer and say, hey, look, if I get an EV, it's going to save you money because an EV is more efficient. You will spend less money on electricity than you do on gasoline. So we can either I'll send you like my power bill every month and you can see, what I'm charging, or just say like, hey, it's everything comes out even in the wash. Give me, $200 a month, just as a, whatever you call it, a stipend, and that'll cover my EV charging, something like that. And by the way, that's cheaper than spending $400 a month on gas. Right. Win-win, sure. as we call it.
And we did something similar. MotorTrend, actually, we test a lot of vehicles, and we have a corporate card for charging gasoline, but...
The so-called charging, but yeah.
Charging
on the credit card. Yeah.
Yes. Anyways, in the changeover to electric vehicles, I helped set up a program where we're getting home chargers, the cost of installation covered. And then, because yes, to Johnny's point, actually running the cars is a lot cheaper to the company than all the gas vehicles we've been testing for decades. But let's address Colin's question specifically, because he works seemingly for a larger company and they're looking for a plug and play solution like exists on the gas side. So to your point, and because Colin mentioned both GM and Ford, I reached out to both GM and Ford. Forwarding his question.
Can I guess? Ford got back to you.
Yes. Ford got back to me, and our colleague Emma on the product PR side for EVs actually forwarded me over to Britta on Ford Pro. And Ford Pro
that's
is...
what I meant, Ford Pro. Yeah,
Ford Pro is their fleet side. They serve it. They actually sell Ford Lightning work trucks and also the Transit EVs. And she sent me back literally paragraphs of an answer. She's like, Colin asked a great question. We've seen the need for home charging solution for organizations that allow employees to take fleet vehicles home. In surveys we've conducted with fleet operators, we found almost 30% allow their employees to take company vehicles home overnight. And charging at home obviously is convenient and cost effective for the business and the driver.
Yeah, it's the cheapest rates. It's way cheaper than a public charger. Yeah, way cheaper.
So below is what Ford Pro is doing to help fleet operators. So they have EV charging hardware, commercial grade, high quality, suitable for employees' homes. It actually has RFID card-based access, so only employees can use it to charge company EVs if
So in
required.
other words, you can't charge your spouse's Tesla.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the boss knows, right?
Yeah, don't like that.
LCD display for status information, charge session information, insights, energy use. And then it's optimized with software. So the smart charging software monitors the charge sessions and electricity, so you can reduce energy costs because you're scheduling the sessions, which is, again, best practice, right? Most people don't understand. Charging, just because you plug it in at home, doesn't mean you're getting the best rate. There's a window, usually from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., where the rates are the highest. So if you can, charge not in that window. And ideally, you could just go home, whatever time you go home, plug it in,
Right.
and the
it won't
car
even
doesn't start charging
Yeah.
until after 9 o'clock, right?
You get the blue light. It's
yes,
waiting. Yeah,
exactly. You get, so there's a whole bunch of stuff, basically, that Ford has via Ford Pro, and they even have some incentives for the 2025 Lightning Pro and e-Transit models. You can get something like $2,000 charging cash incentives if you set this thing up. So the end all solution, Colin, thank you again for your question. I'm going to send this all to you. Is there are manufacturers, specifically the ones that have EV products geared toward fleet usage. Ford is a great example. GM also has the Silverado work truck.
Yeah, sure.
They also do, if you didn't know, they do those big ass bright drop vehicles that the FedEx use.
Right.
They're going to actually start being branded Chevrolets.
Chevys, yeah.
Not really something you'd probably take home. Maybe. They're kind of cool.
Hey, rural areas and, you know, maybe, yeah.
Anyways, they are out there. You're ahead of the game, ahead of the curve in terms of thinking about this, but there are some manufacturers that have solutions for you. So great question.
Yep.
But
and
now
Kia's going to have all that for city dwellers with that. Remember that stuff they showed at CES last year?
Yes.
That's coming.
Yes,
but I was going to say real quick, be like Mr. Fish. Like if you have questions, Ed's going to send Colin a whole bunch of swag for asking such a great question.
Maybe a hat.
If you,
Maybe a mug.
Maybe a mug, yeah. But anyways, if you have a question, send it in to us. You know, you can MotorTrend at MotorTrend.com. You can hit me up on Instagram, hit Ed up on Instagram, whatever. Let us know, and we will answer your question on the next episode.
But now we're going to talk about our guest, who is, he has a really highfalutin title here, SVP, Senior Vice President of Marketing at Tire Rack, but he's not a, as Angus used to say, a shiny bum exec.
No.
This is our man, Woody.
Yeah.
Woody Rogers. I've known him for going over 20 years now. He's been the guy who picked up the phone when we used to call before email. No. At Tire Rack, TireRack.com, Tire Rack. He started in sales as a product information specialist. He ran their their tire testing program out of South Bend, Indiana, which is where Tire Rack's headquarters is. He basically worked his way up from the bottom to now head of marketing for the company. And he is super knowledgeable.
He's a geek. He's a tire geek.
Super knowledgeable about tires.
He really is, yeah.
What he doesn't, we don't get into in the podcast. He's a hell of a driver. He does a lot of racing.
Sure.
Which, makes sense because a large part of his career was driving cars every day, driving BMW 3 Series and testing all sorts of tires. I mean, you think that we have a great job, right? For most of his life, he's
tire
like,
guys. Yeah.
These tire testers are like they literally just
you get to break tires. That's the thing. Is go out there and ruin them. Yeah.
Drive all day.
Yeah. That's fun.
Woody's great. He supported us for a long time on YouTube and our vehicle testing on a long-term fleet through Tire Rack. If you ever need any kind of information on tires, go to TireRack.com. Look it all up there as we'll talk about. But let's get Woody on and talk about tires and electric vehicles. All right. So Woody.
Yeah.
Hey.
Thank you so much for joining us. Coming all the way, just learned, just for this. It's going back at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning.
Sure.
That's crazy. Appreciate it.
Well, I'll go anywhere to talk about tires because I love talking about tires.
This I know is true.
On message.
So
where do you work again?
He works at the greatest tire retailer on the planet, and I say that I'm not paid by Tire Rack. I'll just look right at the camera.
I used to be,
but I've been working. We've been working with Tire Rack since the beginning of my career.
The dawn of time.
Since the dawn of time, working with Woody for most of that time.
Yeah.
I read your bio. You started at Tire Rack in 1999.
That's right.
So that you can say the turn of the last century.
Okay. That's 25 ago. 25 years.
Immediately, I feel old.
Yes.
But that's a career. I mean,
Yeah, it
25
is.
years.
And you started like at the ground floor. You were in. I mean, were you answering the phones literally?
I was literally answering phones, and people still call today, but
This is pre-website. This is pre-TireRack.com or right?
it was I don't know, 18 months after we took our first order.
No
16
kidding.
months. I mean, it was early days. I mean,
like TireRack period started, like TireRack or on the website?
on the website.
Okay, gotcha.
So .com started it, I think, in late 96 as a catalog.
Okay.
And then
Right, because why would you buy something off the internet?
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh. And it took us almost 2 years to develop the year, make, model search engine for the website, because we felt really strongly that we want to make sure people get the right thing for their vehicle.
Right.
Sure.
And, you can't just order by part number or by size or by widget. So by 98, end of 98, middle of 98, we took our first e-commerce order.
That's amazing.
And when I started in 99, the website really wasn't equal to a good salesperson in revenue. Couldn't keep up.
Oh, really?
This is like the steam shovel versus the hand shovel,
Yeah.
example. And obviously, history has shown us the way.
Sure.
But we still have, over 50 people taking phone calls every day.
That's
Really?
crazy. Yeah.
Wow.
Huh. Well, I'll sing the praises of the website again. This first half of this is going to sound like a huge commercial, but I have a very short list of companies that I really enjoy their goods and services. In and Out's on that list. American Express is really good. Costco is amazing.
Costco's good.
Tire Rack is right up there because, and you need to correct me if I'm wrong, because I am talking about the Tire Rack pre this or somewhat recent change of ownership. But I don't know how that's affected anything. But Tire Rack, if you're any kind of enthusiast shopping for wheels or tires or a lot of other parts, as it turns out, all the information's there, all the sizes, all the fitments of the tires, of course, but also the wheels and the clearances to things like the calipers on your Porsche. Like if you buy this really fancy set of wheels, is it going to clear? Is it going to rub? Is it going to hit? Like they do all of the measurement that they can tell you if you don't want to do that.
I mean, I use it as a tire search engine.
Yeah.
When I was just like, what's possible to put on a vehicle? It's just Tire Rack. The interface was the best.
Yes.
So you just go there. Even if I wasn't necessarily buying a tire, someone just asked me like, what could I get for whatever? It's like, well, let me look on Tire Rack.
Yeah, PCD. You want to learn the pitch circle diameter, right? They get that right. Like it's there. You can learn about your winter tires. You guys still heat cycle tires?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Is that you? Because you're the racer guy. Who came up with hey, we should offer heat cycling to all those racing nerds?
Well, it didn't start with me. It started with my predecessor in the tire information area, which was, kind of my midterm with Tire Rack career. And he was really trying to solve a problem that one of our sales managers was having. He was a BMW club racer, and a BF Goodrich tire of the day was experiencing a groove of doom if you took it out as a sticker tire and raced it hard.
Okay.
And this is a treaded street DOT tire, that it would, the compound would heat and wear in an unusual way. So he had some racing experience in his background. How do we solve for this? Sticker versus scuff tire if you're into the racing side of things. And so, great, did a kind of a real life experiment. But then, track time to scuff all of your tires is really expensive and time consuming.
Right.
So how can we solve for that? And a lot of people in the early days thought it was a pizza oven. We would just put your tire in there and bake it, and heat is the solution. That's not the answer. It's actually exercising the tire,
Right. It's friction,
stretching,
right?
breaking the molecular bonds of the tread rubber,
Right.
and then letting them recure and relink.
Right.
That's the process.
So what would you do? You'd mount it, run it up to a certain
It's
RPM and heat, and then let it cool down?
It's kind of like a roller, right? Essentially.
Essentially, I mean, my dream would be I will personally heat cycle your tires on our track every day, right?
Sure.
Get there, hot lap your tires.
Yeah.
But that's not the solution. So yes, we mount it, we inflate it, we put it in a custom built machine with very finely controlled pressure. We want to create deflection in the tire, just like it would on the vehicle, let it roll. And through that, putting energy into the tire that way without putting the scrubbing wear and tear action of driving it on the track.
Right.
In 15 minutes through exercise, we bring it up to full operating temperature. And then once it gets there, take it out, dismount it, ship it to the customer. It's curing. It needs at least 24 hours for the continued curing process for it to really work well. But that's the shipping time. So when the tires get to you tomorrow, they are ready to go.
Right. And
That's labor intensive. I mean, you got to have a lot of humans mounting tires and dismounting tires.
Yeah.
But the number of people who request a heat cycle tire is tiny in comparison to the number of tires you guys sell, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it's a small portion, but and if we looked at it as its own profit center, I'm sure it loses money. We don't charge that much for it. It is labor intensive.
Yeah.
It takes resources, equipment, material. We have rows and rows of wheels of every size and dimension. Because you have to have the right size wheel for the tire. Think of all the the range of tire sizes from a little 14-inch on a Miata to a 22-inch something on a crazy supercar. We have that spectrum of wheels in multiple warehouse locations, not just one place.
Right.
Did you have to build this heat cycling machine?
We did, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like, this is not something that's available, right?
Not available.
A race team would, to your point, just do it on the racetrack and have them in those cool warming bags waiting to go onto the car or whatever. So
yeah, keeping it warm. I mean, but you're still not, it's not perfect because that's back to the pizza oven example.
Right.
It's warming it up, but really you have to, like your muscles, you have to break down the weak bonds in the rubber molecules and let them recure and relink in a stronger way.
Right.
So how many,
that's what solves the problem.
Like in a year, how many heat cycle tires is TireRack selling?
I don't know the number offhand, but it's probably in the tens of thousands.
And how many tires do you guys sell a year?
Millions and millions. I mean, when you look at the full spectrum.
The full spectrum, yeah.
That's
there are a lot of
insane.
cars, there are a lot of customers, a lot of people that need lots of tires.
Right.
And so to continue to sing the praises of TireRack, it's something you said about the curing process taking place during the shipping. The last time, I think, the last breakthrough I'm aware of TireRack had, this was like 10 years ago. You guys put a distribution center in like Vegas or something. So now you are able to, if you order tires today on TireRack.com in the lower 48, you'll get them basically tomorrow, right? Is that true? Is that still true?
We don't want to go back in our capabilities, so it is true because it's still true, but we have to catch up on the stats. I think.
Okay.
That was Reno, Nevada.
Yeah.
I don't know, 18, 20 years ago, maybe longer. And so we now have 12 locations, 12 distribution centers around the country. We put them and the tires in them close to where people are. So if you look at the lower 48, we deliver now to just over 90% of the population base in one day.
That's crazy.
Wow.
So, I mean,
And I've been
better than Amazon.
I don't think it was a TireRack distribution center, but I've been to another tire distribution center. It's wild.
Oh.
It's just the craziest thing.
Have you been to South Bend? Have you been to like
No, but I was like, they're just tires just stacked to the ceiling. And they're like mammoth. Like, I don't know the square footage. Like, how big are those warehouses?
well, I mean, things, if you're at if it's at the distribution level, it's one thing. If it's at a tire manufacturing facility,
This would be a distribution level.
So
it was just massive.
could be 500 to 750,000 square feet
I mean, yeah,
or more.
yeah. And tires are stacked like how
Generally, it's
high?
like 25 feet-ish. There are fire codes. Tires are,
Yes.
they don't spontaneously combust, but if they do start on fire,
It's very bad.
It's a real problem.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the fire code limits how you can
But
stand.
I was just impressed because they have those those extended forklifts, like they're really the warehouse.
That's what we do.
It was just cool to watch like the tires running around. I was just picking up some tires.
And you guys have, speaking of you mentioned the test track. You guys have a test track at the headquarters. Do you have a test track anywhere else?
So yes and yes is the answers. We have the track right outside our front door at the headquarters in South Bend, and recently through as you touched on the acquisition of TireRack, we now have in the family a dedicated tire test facility in Texas, south of San Antonio, Treadwell Research Park. So,
Oh, right. Yeah, our man
it's
Eric.
a former Cooper test facility.
Yeah, our Eric Iapana just went there and checked it out as a potential venue for
over Truck of the Year.
Truck of the Year.
Yeah, nice.
So okay.
Yeah, no, tire facilities I've been to a bunch of them. They're wild places.
Yeah,
it's really different than I think what people maybe imagine. But
we stopped by during like one lap of America a couple of years in a row, and their headquarters is nuts.
I've been to the Pirelli test center, and it's like in a national park in Italy, and it's just wild because it's the most beautiful. Somehow it's grandfathered in, but it's the most beautiful facility in the world, and like they have you want to go drift a semi truck, and they have a semi truck they can drift around. It's just a wild place.
Yeah. TireRack.com is your place for the best selection of tires from top brands. Always fast and free shipping and multiple convenient installation options. They also stay on the cutting edge of the tire industry. Their world-class tire testing program is Truth Serum for tires. EV-focused tires, products with noise-canceling technology, they've tested it all to help you make the best decision before buying. TireRack.com, the way tire buying should be. So, okay, we've extolled the virtues of Woody's employer. You're currently the Senior Vice President of Marketing, but again, you started the sales floor, then you were a Product Information Specialist, and then for a long time, you ran the testing program. You got to do all the fun stuff, drive the cars, drift the cars, heat cycle the special tires for the special clients personally. What kind of vehicles did you get in to test? Like you to use for was it mostly BMWs?
For a long time, it was BMW 3 Series,
right?
Which, if you roll back to BMW history, in the 2000s, it was still an amazing platform,
right?
And they're great cars today,
right?
Yeah.
But they're probably less perfect for testing, and the car park has changed. So 20 years ago, when that was my main jam, I mean, a BMW 3 Series could go from a basic could fit the bill to test basic touring tires up to performance tires of the day. A performance car wasn't that wild. Today's spectrum of vehicles, from trucks to crossovers to large SUVs to everyday cars to supercars. I mean, the spectrum is crazy.
Yeah.
So we've had to evolve our fleet from just 3 Series now. So
what is the closest to like a Swiss Army knife vehicle today that has that bandwidth that the 3 Series had, would you say?
Man.
What's in the fleet right now that actually covers a pretty broad swath?
Well, we do still have a BMW 3 Series in the fleet,
okay.
To try and fit that bill, but that or like a Camry, quite frankly. Think about a Camry today.
Yeah.
And so it's quiet, it's luxurious, it's powerful.
Yeah.
Right?
They got to be close to 300 horsepower now. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was more power than our 3 Series had 20 years ago.
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, look at Camrys. I think I should know this. But I think it was 285 horsepower, 286. A Viper was 400 when it came out.
That's right.
And that was like crazy numbers. Crazy.
So recently, because I think what you're very elegantly stating is that, like, I tell those people all the time because they don't realize it. You're living like the golden age of cars. Like, cars have never been like faster, more efficient, more capable, more insane,
more luxurious, more quiet,
like,
more loud.
The breadth of what they can do at every level is like bananas. And for a guy who's a specialist in this very one, like, super important part of it, which is the contact patch, what keeps the vehicle on the road. What recent vehicles have you just been like, I can't believe these things even exist? Is it like when the Hummer EV came out, or something like crazy heavy, powerful, like, or did you guys do Tesla Model S Plaid testing, or like? I
mean, I've not driven a Plaid. I've ridden in it, and it's kind of nuts,
right?
Frankly, something like the Hummer EV, also nuts, but really in a very narrow lane. I've just started driving a Porsche Taycan, and I have to say it's my first personal P car. It's my first EV, and it's kind of blowing my head off as an everyday driving experience.
Is it a new one?
No, 23.
Oh, okay. I just drove the 24. Well, no, the massive. Like, it went from being like cannot go on a road trip because the battery won't last to like now. Wow, did they radically?
I picked it up in San Antonio, Texas, and drove it all the way to South Bend, Indiana, as my first EV. I had never charged an EV in my life.
Wow, really?
And I show up on a Saturday morning with my 13-year-old son, and we road trip the thing home.
And?
It was great.
And you made it?
Totally. Yeah. If we had more time, I could tell you a huge story about the adventure. But
no, right. There's a bit of adventure.
But the car and the infrastructure to get me from Texas to Indiana, was no problem.
Did you do the routing just using the car? Or did you use some other apps?
I used multiples, and using another app is actually what got me in trouble on day 2. But the weather and a tornado and all sorts of other things played a role.
I will also tell you though, I've used it was actually the Audi clone, the e-tron.
e-tron.
Their native built-in app got me in a lot of trouble one time. So it's we're in the early days.
Nothing's perfect, but listening, catching up on recent episodes of this podcast, Ed, I think I've heard you say multiple times, we are in the 1910, 1915s of the EV infrastructure. And I would say that's absolutely true. And, people have to get their head around that. If they, think about comparing the EV experience and challenges, if that's how you want to view it,
Right.
to what we are familiar with, which is this golden age of vehicles and the availability of dinosaur fuel to put in them. I mean,
Right.
Yeah, and again, the ramp up is just starting to happen. But like, I happened to be down at the Mercedes-Benz Classic Center yesterday, and they had the original three-wheeled car, the Benz patent wagon, which was patented and invented in 1886. They didn't do anything with it until 1888. It just sat around for 2 years. No one could think of what to do with it. Like, yeah, it worked, and you know what I mean. Like, so the progression is going to be, a ramp.
Taking a road trip in 1910 with your gas-powered vehicle was I'm sure harder than my adventure coming from Texas to Indiana.
Way harder, yeah.
Way harder.
When your wooden spokes broke, I mean.
You have a home charger?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the game changer. I mean, that solves everything. And, that is our family road vehicle.
Yeah. Wow.
I drove 120 miles to Chicago to the airport. I'll drive home. I've road tripped to Ohio. I mean, it's no problem.
What's the immediate, like the infrastructure immediate around South Bend? Is it pretty good? Is it like EV, like Electrify America, EV Go, like you got pretty good chargers or no?
There are chargers around. As I look at the apps like PlugShare, there are more chargers around than you think.
Mm-hmm.
The key to it is aligning your expectation with your needs of the speed of the charge.
Right.
And what am I doing when I need to get energy in the car?
Yeah.
And aligning that. I have 20 minutes. Great. I want a fast charger. That's my mindset, because I don't plan going to the gas station, days ahead.
Right.
Why
would I plan going to the charger days ahead?
Right.
So that's just the adjustment.
Do you have, because the great thing about Porsche and their first EV is that they thought ahead and they put a high voltage architecture in it, so you have the ability to fast charge.
It charges so fast.
But do you have good access to 350 kilowatt chargers? Okay.
Yeah.
So then, all right. South Bend, folks, you want to buy an EV, you go to some, and live in some place.
But again, what you said, Woody, I think is important. You said you drove from Texas to Indiana, which is 1,000 miles and through the heart of the country, and you made it just fine. So it's all possible. It's all it's not as bad as maybe people have been led to believe.
It's not. It's 1,200 if you're keeping score.
Sorry, I was just
but it's
top
also
of my head.
It's not just possible,
right?
But it's not that hard,
right? Yeah,
it really isn't. I mean,
right.
The hardship came literally with a tornado going through where I needed to charge in a fairly light stretch of infrastructure.
Yes.
Multiplied by, I didn't get a full charge at the hotel the night before, but no problem. I used an off-platform app to find my next charge stop. Turned out it's a closed gas station,
right?
Boarded up. I didn't know it.
Right.
So now I'm really pushing it. I get to my destination where a tornado had gone through an hour before.
Right.
There's no cell service. There's no power anywhere.
Right.
I'm down to 10% charge, 8% charge in my battery. The next stop is way up the road.
Right.
I don't even have a cell service to know how far is it.
Right.
But I know it's north. I got to keep going.
And you have a small child with you.
And
well, 13's not that small.
Not that small, but I don't want to break my car on the side of the road.
No.
Right.
But I found the next exit and got off, and they still had power, but it was a gas station, not a charging location. And I find, okay, the next charge location is another 25 miles up the road, but I have 8 miles of range. I won't make it.
You might, actually.
I might, but I might not. And I don't want to be stuck.
Right.
So roadside assistance, solve the day.
Interesting.
Oh, interesting.
A flat tow, a quick charge in front of the grocery store there, a fast charge in 22 minutes, I am rolling again. Done.
Right. That's great. I mean, because we've done a little bit of testing. We've taken a lot of our long-term EVs and we intentionally run them to zero and past.
Absolute zero.
Just to see what the remaining charges. And for I did the Ioniq. No, I did the ID4. And there was another 25 miles after zero. So maybe, maybe. But I get it. Didn't want to risk it. Well, this is great. So we set you up as the tire expert. Now we've established your EV
Well, I wanted
credentials.
to ask. I have a lot of tire questions. But
Yes, we're gonna go
okay,
there.
so I have a lot of opinions about what consumers do with their tires. But what if you could change one thing about the way Americans deal with their tires? What would you change?
Are we talking en masse? Are we talking a specific
In mass.
customer
In other
segment?
words, like
We'll
it's,
start
it's
with
time.
general, and
It's
then-
time. The average person says, "I need new tires." Well, would you even have them check for like tire wear? You know,
Well, yeah, that's a great point. I
or
think
maybe top 3 things you change because
you can probably split general consumers or most tire consumers in half, 2 buckets. People who discover they need tires and they go solve it right away.
Yeah.
Or people that really want tires and want a tire that will do something for them.
Okay.
So the need-focused customer really is just waiting until they're hungry and I got to go eat. You know, time to go solve this problem today, right now. I'll go to the store and fix it. That customer really is, I'd say, very unaware of leading up to that point how marginal the tires are becoming, and they don't. Tires' number one job is to carry the load of the vehicle, and only once it can carry the load, it can do the work of driving and keeping you on the road and giving you traction, keeping you safe. You need inflation pressure to do that. Most people do not maintain the air pressure in their tires. Even people who know better, enthusiasts, right?
Yeah.
And
Guilty.
so,
Really? Terrible.
so underinflated tires wear out faster. So that is not very environmentally friendly, and it's not friendly to your pocketbook. They consume more energy when they're low on air. And at some point, you begin to damage the tire enough that you may actually compromise it in a way that is very unsafe and cause a blowout. My tire just blew out. I guarantee you it was because it lost air, either from rapid puncture or just lack of maintenance. So air pressure.
Okay.
You're losing a PSI a month. You lose a PSI every 10 degrees of temperature drop. So this time of the year, as we're headed into the fall and winter, you're double stacking time plus temperature change. You know, check your air pressure. I mean, God, once every 6 months, please. You know, don't wait for the TPMS light to
That's
come on
interesting.
your dash.
The pound a month, because I've noticed that. Cause my truck now, I have a Rivian, but it has it just shows you the tire PSI. Yeah, it does just drop every month about. So
How should they check their air pressure? Do you think going to the gas station using the communal one okay, or you say get a dedicated tire pressure gauge?
Anything is better than nothing.
Okay.
So start with the communal gas station
Nice.
pressure gauge. But if you have a vehicle that gives you the pressure readout, like your Rivian, great, check that once in a while.
Yeah.
Dummy. I mean, take a look.
And believe it. You trust the OEMs in general that are providing accurate tire pressures?
It's way accurate enough.
yeah,
You know,
better than nothing.
We need arm's length. Like,
Yeah.
give me within a couple of PSI.
Right.
Okay.
I'd rather you be 5 PSI over than 2 PSI under.
Right.
Interesting.
So put some air in. Now, there is a limit. You can't,
Yeah.
go to the stratosphere, but check your pressure.
Right.
The second thing will be check your tread depth.
the penny test still?
Penny test, like that's legally worn out in most states, is 230 seconds, the top of Lincoln's head. Really, a tire needs 3 basic things to do its job. The right tread pattern for the conditions. A racing slick is smooth. A big aggressive tire for off-road is, for dirt and mud. It has to have the right tread compound for the conditions and the needs. And it has to have sufficient tread depth, the volume, the open space, again, to deal with the conditions it's going to deal with. Right now it's nice and dry here in California.
Always.
It does rain once in a while.
Right.
What happens when it rains for people on the road? They go crazy.
Well, they lose it.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Everyone loses their mind.
It's called bumper cars. Yes.
yeah, right? And of course, the oil's coming up from the roads, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
but
no.
but a big factor is the fact that you're on these tires with no tread depth or minimal tread depth, right?
Right.
So the quarter test with Washington's head is better because now you're about 430 seconds. And the tire starts, depending on the tires, passenger car tires, around 30 seconds of tread depth. 30 seconds of an inch is the industry standard measurement, unit of measure. So,
What's that in millimeters?
I don't know.
We're American.
6.5. So, I don't know. Sorry, I'm not doing that.
It's okay.
Lincoln. I mean, that's like that meme. Like Americans will do anything other than the metric system. Like Lincoln and Washington's head.
Yeah, I was like, when I said the penny test, I was like, God, where do people even find pennies anymore, right? Like,
Well, I know that is a problem. Actually, it's not a great relevant test, but sufficient tread depth. So, 430 seconds is where we see the real tipping point of traction in anything other than dry. You've already been noticing it in the snow as you drop below 6 and 5. That's a volumetric event that it's having to deal with. And rain, even just damp roads, nice shine on the road, not even hydroplaning deep water. I mean, you'd be amazed at the impact of tread depth and just not being able to deal with the water, and your speed plus the water depth combined with the tread depth of the tire is this triangulation of a challenge that the tire is going to experience. So 430 seconds is really about the time, if you're paying attention, you're going to notice a loss of traction. Like these tires aren't working the way that they used to. And that's about the time you should consider replacing them if you're going to be driving through wet conditions.
Okay. And then there was a third?
Third thing is
temperature, winter tire switchover. That's not really relevant here, but this is an international podcast.
International. I mean, thinking more globally would be, not all tires are created equal. They are not round and black. They are not batter poured into the waffle iron to make a shape. A tire is a complex laminate structure with many, many layers of components: fabric, steel, multiple types of rubber compounds. There is an amazing level of technology and science that goes into designing and developing and manufacturing tires. And buying on price alone, because they are a round and black commodity, like gas on the street corner, I go for the cheapest gas. Okay, great. Tires are not that way. You generally get what you pay for. Unless you're giving the vehicle away, you're going to sell it to somebody you don't like, or your mother-in-law. Don't buy the cheapest tire you can buy.
But that's got to be so frustrating for you, because I know so many people, and I have friends that have very nice cars, and they're like, hey, Costco, I can get like a tire for, $10, whatever. And I'm like, I don't do that. You have a $100,000 Mercedes, like put a good tire on it. And they're like, oh, but it's so much cheaper. How do you deal with that? How do you change people's minds?
Well, that's the 30-year question TireRack's been struggling with. We keep, that's partly why I'm here.
Right.
Is to get people to think about it. Right. And my best parallel, going back to my days on the phone, talking with those people, they're driving an Audi, for example, and like, just give me the cheapest tire. Okay, but what's important to you? Well, I want this, I need that, I'd like this other thing. Okay, great. Well, here's my recommendation. Maybe it's a Michelin, maybe it's a Yokohama, whatever, but it's not the cheapest thing that we sell or the cheapest thing they could buy. Right. And then the customer's like, well, really? But like, think for a minute. Why did you buy that vehicle?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
You bought it for a reason, because it does something for you, right? And it does it better than just a basic appliance like a first-gen Toyota Prius was, basic appliance. Get me to and from. I mean, you might as well be riding the bus at that point.
Agreed.
So why not think about the tire in the same way?
But
because it is not a commodity.
But people don't.
Let me challenge you on this just a little bit, because
cheapskate coming in.
No. Well, yes, but just as a business question, you're now the senior vice president of marketing for TireRack, and you guys sell a variety of tires.
We do.
You sell all different brands, and you sell at all different price points. End of the day, isn't it the same to you whether you make a sale? If the customer wants the cheapest one versus a more the mid or the high grade, there's a margin baked in there for TireRack. Like, customer's always right.
Well, I mean, there's an ass for every saddle, right? So, I mean,
yes.
To use an analogy, but tires are not one size fits all.
Right.
So, Jonny, you drive a Rivian. Probably came with Pirelli Scorpion all-terrain tires.
Yes, it did.
Right? And I'm sure you take it off-road all the time.
All the time.
All the time. What's your daily driver?
I got F-150. Yeah. The Lightning.
Oh, okay. Right on. Okay. Do you ever take it off-road?
No.
Okay. Do you ever...
But people take your truck off-road.
And I also think this is our long-term truck for MotorTrend. I think I think we're on the second set of tires.
I will say too, his truck weirdly good off-road. I've just found like EVs in general are just like strangely inherently.
I just like it. I don't like for that. I love that it's quiet. It is like you call it isolation chamber. It's quiet. It's fast. It's weirdly fast. And it's just super smooth. It's like it's a comfortable pair of blue jeans is what I tell people. Like this truck is like phenomenal.
Yeah. But I think if you each could articulate, if we had more time, articulate what you like about the driving experience, and then more specifically, what you need the tire to do to help you enjoy or optimize that driving experience. They would be different things.
Sure.
And that's true for all of our customers. So that is why we have a wide range of products. You know, is profanity allowed on this?
Totally.
You know, I like to say we carry the good.
Yes.
And so we do have a spectrum. We do have an opening price point, which is our lowest price tire in any given size for a reason. But, you know, we are nowhere near to the low end of the spectrum. There was some real junk out there.
Yes. Sure.
I mean,
yes.
You know, a friend's daughter just bought a car from a friend, and, you know, she's complaining about traction in the rain. And I looked at the tires that they have on it, and it's some, you know, just buy the container load import tire from someone made in, you know, in Asia somewhere. And it's no wonder. I mean, it's just not built to perform. It's built to meet a low price point.
Right.
So you get what you pay for.
Okay.
Looking for the best off-road trails? OnX Off-Road has you covered. With over 750,000 miles of trails and comprehensive offline maps, you can explore without worrying about cell service. Easily find trails for 4x4s, ATVs, dirt bikes, and more. Our app provides detailed trail info, including difficulty ratings and open/closed dates. OnX Off-Road also helps you navigate public and private land boundaries, ensuring you stay legal. Try OnX Off-Road free for 7 days and discover why it's the go-to app for off-roaders. Download now.
Real quick, and I'm asking this because this is, if you go down the rabbit hole of Rivian specifically on like what off-road tires do I put on my Rivian on the forums, it just never ends. No one can agree on anything. Like, do you have does Tire Rack have a recommendation? Because the Pirellis that it comes with are very good overall, but they're not excellent off-road. They're not excellent on-road. Like, if you want, what are you recommending for the OEM replacement for the off-road Rivians?
Well, that really depends on what the specific driver really wants to accomplish.
This is why it never ends. Yeah,
it does never end, and I mean, we can debate it, but it's like, you know, debating, you know, which of your trucks is better,
right?
And is there a wrong answer? I don't know that there is. What's the best answer for you?
Right.
That is the right answer for you.
Towing horses is asking for a friend. I
mean, yeah. Well, okay, great. So you need something. How far are you going? You know, is efficiency
50 miles?
Yeah. But think about the value, emotional and financial value of the load that's behind you.
Right.
Okay. Let's start there. Right.
Yeah.
So you're towing horses. Horses are not expensive, and they are very emotionally valuable to a lot of people. Right. So what are the conditions you may encounter during your drive? What's the worst case scenario when you would pay anything not to have a problem, not to throw your rig off the road because you're dealing with an unexpected event, right?
There's a really great, topically, there's a big fire going on in California, the mountain fire, and there's all this footage of people evacuating because this is out in a part of LA suburbs where there's people who have horses, and they're like getting these horses out on trailers, just like what you're describing in an emergency situation.
We don't have fireproof tires,
right?
So can't help there. But rain, snow, I've got to go off the road. I need long distances. With tires, you know, until we have fully connected level 4 autonomy where all the vehicles are communicating with each other and there are no surprises to the vehicle, it can be like that cross traffic scene from the Jetsons opening intro where the vehicles they know the timing, right? There's no surprise.
Right. Because there will be there'll be tornadoes. There'll be, a wheel will fall off,
But only one vehicle is surprised, and it communicates to the horde, and everybody knows there's a tornado coming, so I'll deal with it, right? I can anticipate it. We as human drivers don't have that ability yet. So where traction really comes into play is for the unexpected moment. And we all experience those. Mm-hmm. I'm distracted. Oh, traffic is slowing down. I got to stop suddenly. And hey, it's wet. Or around the curve, or the mattress falls off the truck. Do something unexpectedly. That's where you need a margin or some reserve capability, right? So going back to the horse trailer analogy, you have to imagine there will be a time when I have my trailer of precious cargo and I will encounter an unexpected event when I need reserve capability in those tires. Is that in the wet? Okay, that's one solution. Is it in the snow? That's probably a different solution.
Right.
But they have to last long enough. They have to be what I can afford. They have to be smooth and quiet. They have to drive nicely, because I don't want to hate this driving experience every day. You know, a tire has to roll so many things in. And then you think about that OEM tire you were talking about on your Rivian.
Yeah.
And it's good at everything or many things, but it may not be perfect at any one thing. Well, that is the dilemma that the engineers have to face when they put this package together. And then you have, well, what is the priority for the vehicle engineering team? And does that exactly align with every owner's set of parameters?
Right.
I mean, OEM tires across most vehicle platforms are generally disliked by most consumers. The survey data we get back, you know, we have billions of miles of reported data on our website.
What are they? Is it a one dislike?
We're not happy until everyone's unhappy.
Or is it just random dislikes?
Oh, it's generally across the spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Means they're doing something right. Because again, I think they're trying to check all the boxes, and you know, it's just everyone's unhappy for some other reason. It's too expensive to replace. Or it doesn't do this for where I live, or it doesn't do this where I live, right? And this is where you guys can step in and maybe cater to these opportunities after that first 50, 100,000 miles.
Let's change the matrix of your priorities, and you know, and optimize for you.
Right. So let's get into it a little bit more for the EV focused audience.
I was just gonna say that,
and start talking about some of the themes that we've heard, and but I'd like to kind of do this at two levels. One, talk a little bit about, you know, debunk some of the myths, or talk about some of the concepts around what EVs require from the tires. And then for those who own EVs or listening or interested in this topic, you know, what are some of the buying considerations? What brands, what models might you recommend?
And do EV specific tires really make that much of a difference?
Right. We can start there.
Or is that marketing?
Here are some of the things that we understand or we know, right? EVs, generally speaking, are heavy. They're heavier. Johnny's going to dispute this a little bit, but by and large, especially when you get to the trucks, they're huge battery. It's sitting down low.
Yep.
The trucks are heavy. That influences the way the vehicles handle, obviously, the load, as you were talking about. And I mean, everything about it is there. And then at the same time, this weight influences efficiency, right? The amount of, and you know, how do you balance, I'm asking 10 questions in one, right? How do you balance the rolling resistance, the efficiency with the stopping and the performance you need out of the tire? So sorry, that's 18 questions in one.
I'm glad I'm not a tire engineer for an OEM,
right.
Because it's almost like an impossible puzzle to solve.
Right.
They have so many competing requirements,
right,
that create this tension in the model they have to figure out. EVs are heavy, but look at the size of the tires that are on those vehicles. So, I mean, the tire is scaling in proportion to the weight of the vehicle. And so EVs are heavy, but the tires they are riding on are large. So that's spreading out the work and spreading out the load to do the work.
And by large, you mean mostly it's a width thing, right? Because here, all the cars, they're all running these big, stupid, large, 20, 22s.
Well, there's rim diameter.
Yeah, with little sidewall, right?
And that's relatively low sidewalls, often, but they're very wide.
Yes.
So, I mean, they're large from a air chamber. Think of the space inside the hoop, right? So, yes, it's a very large wheel, but a really large diameter tire that's very wide. But think of the cubic space inside the tire. And that's what determines how much load it can carry.
Right.
There are rules, engineering rules around the tire size. There are rules that govern what sort of load and reserve load capacity the tire has to have given the weight of the vehicle. So even if consumers are not checking their pressure and running them low on air, it's still keep doing the work. I mean, there's all sorts of that. So the tire is sized proportionately for the vehicle. I believe that it is the torque and the driving habits that EVs bring out in us that is the prime driver of the misconception that EVs wear out tires fast. I mean, pedal to the metal, man. These things are so much fun to drive. It's so addictive.
I'm glad you said that, because everyone says weight, and I still come back to
It's not weight.
like if you look at, there's a lot of 2,500 and 3,500 trucks in the world, right? Right? In America, we buy a lot of heavy duty trucks. Well, what do they weigh? Well, they weigh like between 7,000 and 8,000 pounds, right? So we've had these super heavy vehicles forever. It's not like EVs have some like crazy weight. Even the Hummer, which is crazy, it's 8,900 pounds. Guess what? A 3,500 dually, 8,900 pounds. We've had comparables. I don't know. We've had comparable weighted vehicles. It's not like we. It's not like we have 14,000. It's not a new problem.
I would just argue that the tire, though, and the spec of those trucks you're talking about, the 2,500 to 3,500, but the dual rear wheel, that's a smaller wheel, a much larger air chamber, a much taller sidewall. When you talk about like your truck, the Hummer EVs,
my truck is 70. I mean, it's a big sidewall, and the Hummer's a big sidewall. Those are off-road vehicles.
But they're also running what your 20s or 22?
Mine's 20s off-road.
20s and 22. Yeah, these are not the same spec.
Yeah, 19 and a half for a heavy duty vehicle.
That these heavy duties are running.
But the size of the wheel, which is what you're talking about, Ed, is really just the hole in the middle of the tire. And think about the overall diameter of the tire itself and how wide the tire is. Yeah. That's really the combination here. We've taken some cursory look at reported wear life data from our customers as we survey them. And EVs are, wearing tires about as fast as what consumers are reporting with comparable tires on performance ICE vehicles. So you take I'm going to say a Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. You put that on a Tesla Model 3. You put that on an Audi R8. Okay. They're going to wear out in about the same
So
time.
It's just the torque. Yeah.
And
it's not
and
the
that
weight.
torque is addictive. My gosh, I'm case in point. Like all I do is rocket from traffic light to traffic light with my Porsche. It's so much fun.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Interesting.
I like when myths are dispelled, because I always because that was the thing. Everyone's like, oh, they're heavy, and we weigh every vehicle. I have a spreadsheet on my laptop. I have every vehicle weight, and there's nothing that's like crazy. There's nothing abnormal. Like a Model 3. It weighs 3,900 pounds. It's not heavy. A Model Y is 4,400 pounds. A Toyota RAV4 is 4,400 pounds. It's the same weight.
Our friends at Michelin were talking about this parallel problem a decade ago with the onslaught of 25 and 3,500 class pickup trucks.
Right.
Melting tires. I mean, 600 pound-feet of torque. These things are monsters. And they're just wearing out tires. Consumers are driving them as everyday vehicles.
Right.
And so even riding around as an air hauler, no weight in the back. They're just melting the tires. Why? Because it's fun to drive this big, powerful thing that's got all this
And remember when 600 pound-feet of torque was a lot?
It was back in the day.
It was a lot.
Okay.
That's right.
All right. So per Woody, weight's not as much the issue. It's the torque and the driving habits of the user. It's interesting insight. Let's talk about this balance between that, again, back to this OEM, poor car engineers having this crazy problem to solve. How do you balance range, like efficiency of the tire, reduce rolling resistance, and traction, and because you mentioned like the Model 3 Performance or a Tesla Plaid or your own car, the handling and the grip that you want out of an EV.
Yep. I don't know how they do it. It's magic, but that's also why you don't see, tier 3, tier 4 suppliers being even in the conversation to provide OEM tires, because they don't have the technology, manufacturing technology or design technology to provide a solution. It costs real money to make a tire that can solve many of these problems.
And there's so much testing involved. I mean, again, there's man hours.
Just so we're clear, you don't have to call out who's a tier 2 or tier 4. Who's a tier 1 or tier 2?
So tier 1, think Michelin, think Bridgestone, think Pirelli.
Okay.
Tier 4 could be Linglong, Lionheart. I mean, you name it. Brands.
Where's a Kumho in that?
Where's Toyo?
Kumo, Toyo. So they're, depending whose scale you would use, they're either tier 2 or probably tier 3.
Okay.
So they're not. Part of it is how well known are they, and what is their pedigree, and what is their capability. So I'd put a Yokohama, a BF Goodrich in tier 2.
Falcon,
for example. Falcon. Tier 2, maybe, but they're not maybe as widely known as
They do good
Yokohama
off
is.
road. They're and in the high performance.
Mercedes puts them on all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Well, a lot of that is what people don't know. Is a lot of that is the tire manufacturer either reducing how much they're charging or outright paying to be on the vehicle.
Sure.
So,
Well, I mean, my favorite example was with the 6th gen Camaro, because Corvette used Michelin's very famously, and so our buddy Al Hauser went to Michelin and said, "Hey, can we have some Michelin's for Camaro?" And Michelin like turned their nose up and said no, and so he went to Goodyear and said, "Build me a Michelin PS4 competitor," and that became the Eagle F1, which is a very popular tire. A lot of guys that like track McLarens and stuff, that's what they use instead of a Michelin because it's cheaper and basically just as good.
Mm-hmm.
So I always find stories like that interesting.
okay.
But I was going to say, but EV specific tires, is that a real thing? Is that
Well, it's a real thing. I mean, if you want to optimize the range of your vehicle
mm-hmm.
without real like laboratory data on every tire available in that specific size to measure its rolling resistance, how much energy does it take to roll a mile, the OEM tire is probably the best bet if you want to optimize the efficiency of the vehicle. But you will probably not be optimizing the traction in rain or in snow.
Mm-hmm.
You will probably not be optimizing the wear life of that tire. They may start with shallower tread depth to help improve the range.
This is all ringing very true.
Yeah, sure. It starts shallower. I mean, so, you think about...
Wait, why would you mentioned the life of the tire would be shorter because it's less tread depth.
Yep.
For lower, okay.
Right.
But isn't the compound, I would always think the compounds would be like super hard, right? Like you want to, efficiency is, overinflate the tires, make sure they're really hard.
Well, I know this is a podcast, but could I do a show and tell?
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's a video podcast.
So, Jonny, I don't know. Here you go. We got a little table in front of us.
Yeah.
I want you to do a test for me.
Okay.
So we have, think about rolling efficiency of a train wheel.
Describe what you're holding.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, a train wheel.
Yeah.
Steel ring. Okay. It doesn't deflect at all. So it probably rolls very efficiently, right? Like a steel ball bearing on a glass tabletop. It'd roll forever, right? A tire that is heavily underinflated, it flexes a lot when it's under, and that doesn't have enough air pressure. It takes a lot of energy to make that roll, okay? So what I have in my hand are 2 round rubber balls of tread rubber compound. One is a soft performance-focused, squishy compound, and one is a very efficiency-focused tread rubber compound. So what I'd like Jonny to do is hold these together at the same height from about a foot above the tabletop and drop them and see what happens. Okay.
I like that you just carry these around, by the way.
I know. So in your right hand,
turn around, but you do it so they can.
I know. In Johnny's right hand is the efficiency focused compound, and in his left hand is the performance focused, traction focused compound. And so
this one's much harder.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have hard in your right hand, efficiency, soft, squishy in your left hand.
There's a joke in there. I'm not going to say it.
Nope, that's right. So you're way too high. You can be even closer. But even from like that, okay? Give them a little space and then drop them. Right.
Look at that. And I stand on the table.
Yeah.
That's right. Look at that. So what just happened, Jonny?
The performance tire didn't bounce. It just kind of dropped and stuck to the table, whereas the hard efficiency tire bounced about 3 times.
Yep.
And bounced pretty high on that first bounce.
So you put energy into the tires, into the...
Let's see. Okay. Goes from a lot higher. But
dropping them puts energy in.
Forget about that.
The bounce is the energy it gives back.
Right.
So the net is the efficiency of the tire to roll, to move.
Okay. So an EV tire would be harder.
It's not harder necessarily. It feels harder to your hand,
right?
At the rate you're putting in the energy, which is very different than rolling,
right?
Nicely done. It's about its ability to return energy.
Got it.
And the net is the energy it consumes that gets lost by heat, right? I'm not a scientist, but that's the basic principle.
Got it.
So the tread rubber compound plays a huge role.
Right.
Equally, think of tread depth in much the same way. more tread depth moves and deflects more. It takes energy to move it, and then it doesn't give that energy back when it springs back to shape as it rolls through the contact patch. A shallower tire is much more stable. It takes less energy, doesn't deflect as much, so therefore it takes less energy to roll it. That's where tread depth comes in. So if I start, instead of at 10, 30 seconds, I start at 9 or 8.5, that at the starting point, when the vehicle is new, when it's being measured for its fuel economy ratings on brand new tires, makes a huge difference in the tire's contribution to the vehicle's MPG.
So the takeaway is, if you own an EV and you've had it for a while, and you feel like you're losing range, it's not going as far per charge, maybe have a look at your tires. Maybe it's time to replace your tires. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, actually, it's the other way around. So when your tires are new, they will consume the most energy of their life. When they are at the wear bars at Lincoln's Head penny test, 2:30 seconds remaining.
When they become slicks, there's no deflection.
No deflection.
Right.
They are at the most efficient they will ever be.
Right.
And so your range is actually getting better and better and better and better. And then we hear this from customers all the time.
Huh.
I just put back on the same tire.
Right.
There must be something different. These can't be the same spec.
That's good to know.
It's because you've suddenly erased 2 or 3 years worth of slow incremental improvement. You go right back to where you actually started.
That's fascinating, because me and Scott Evans, a coworker of ours, we did a thing. I put some new tires on my Rivian, and he had the MotorTrend long-term Rivian, and we ran them to see if there was an efficiency difference.
Yeah.
My brand new tires versus his with like 18,000 miles on them.
Oh yeah.
And we saw a big delta. It was like 7% thing. But I bet now that I'm hearing this.
So we've tested this with our Tesla Model 3s, and brand new OE tires at full tread depth, OE tires at 2:30 seconds. We used our tire shaving machine, skimmed them down.
Right.
No other difference, no age differences, etc. And we saw a 9% difference on the same day. 2 cars, identical, side by side, switching tires back and forth, 100-mile road trip.
Yeah.
Do you offer this service? Is that like heat cycling, where you shave the tire?
No, because
down?
then you have every other problem.
We do. Sure.
Really?
We'll shave tires.
That's great.
So it started solving a problem for competition drivers.
Right.
But we actually, with the advent of so many all-wheel drive vehicles and ICE vehicles that have a transfer case in the middle, okay, if you mix one new tire with 3 worn tires, say you have your tires are halfway worn, you damage one with a road hazard event, hit a pothole, blow it out. I have to replace one tire. So I put back on one full tread depth tire with 3 partially worn tires. It's like rolling a solo cup on the table, right? It rolls in a circle.
Right.
Why? Because the circumference is different on the new tire, like the rim of the cup, versus the worn tires. So we'll shave one down to match the tread depth of the other 3, and so you don't cause damage to the drivetrain.
And do people know? Do people use this service?
Sure.
Really?
We do more of this than heat cycling. Subaru owners.
Because I've always had people say that to me. They'll say like, "Oh, I got like a whatever. I lost a tire. Should I buy 1 or 4?" And I'm always like, "Just buy 4. Just have them the same."
It's a great way to get an upgrade on your next new tires. I'm always looking for a new reason to buy new tires myself.
Right.
Like thanks nails.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
interesting.
I mean, you look at your Subaru owner's manual, and it will say tread depth. The circumference must be within X. And that translates to about 2:30 seconds of difference, no more than around the 4 tires, or you risk damage to the drivetrain. Right. So spend a few dollars to shave down a new tire. Yeah, but you're taking the life away. But I only have to buy 1, not 4.
So what is if I want to get my tire shaved down? What's that cost on average?
Depends on the type of tire, but it's $15 to $30.
So nothing.
Again, not a profit center for us.
So
it's a
if you
convenience for a customer.
Yeah, if you want to improve your range, go to Tire Rack.
How do they know? So in other words, let's say like I get they should get a tire measuring tool and measure it,
get them checked. Get
a quarter.
Get
Got it.
Get your remaining 3 measured, and talk to one of our sales reps on the phone, and we can get you exactly what you need and match it up exactly, because it's important that the tire is the same plus the tread depth is the same.
I honestly didn't know you offered that service. And I always tell people, like, just don't screw around. Just get 4 new ones. That's interesting.
We're running out of time. I got all sorts of questions. because you've done a lot of Tesla testing, Model 3 testing, which is great. Tesla Model 3, Model Y, best-selling EVs in this country, they don't ride particularly well. That was one of the cost-cutting moves. They went from Model S to Model 3 is they got rid of the air suspension. They have steel spring suspension. The latest in the Highland update on the Model 3, it rides better. But do you have a specific solution for, and it's mostly EVs that have this, this challenge of balancing that good ride. Is there a solution in the tires that still maintain the efficiency and everything else you want from your electric vehicle?
Certainly there is. Based on the size, I don't have the Rolodex in my head of, in a particular size combination on a particular vehicle, this is the best ride solution. I don't quite have that Rolodex in my head anymore. But certainly we can improve the ride quality, if that's what's important to you, by choosing a different tire, looking at what's available in the size. And it's always a moving target. There are always new tires coming. And Pirelli ups the game, Michelin improves the game.
Sure.
Sometimes the next gen tire from a brand actually steps back a little bit in ride quality, but it may improve traction, it may improve wear life. I mean, there's so many competing influences. But we can find a solution for ride.
If it was just, is it all in the compound, or can you do something crazy like go down, get more sidewall, go down in wheel size and add a little bit more, suspension, if you will.
I went from 21-inch OE all-season tires on my car to 19-inch winter tires on my car. So the sidewall height grew by an inch.
Yeah.
And it has more tread depth with a softer rubber compound. Should ride better, right?
No.
It doesn't.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, there's an interplay between the internal structure of the tire, which is the foundation, and the tread pattern, depth, and compound. So you have a soft rubber compound. I better have a more stable structure, or the tire's going to feel really bad.
Squirm, right?
It's going to squirm around, feel squishy, mushy, imprecise. So the balance of the OEM construction in the 21-inch actually rides better just over vertical impacts than the 19-inch combination because of all the things it has to do to
it's engineered around a 21-inch tire.
But then
the car is. I mean, the engineers have something to do with the ride quality.
It's the car comes on 19 standard. This was the 21-inch option. And
do you have the turbo?
No.
Oh, okay.
The same. I mean, sorry. Yeah, don't have the turbo.
Sorry, Johnny.
Oh, I was just
It's all good.
What I meant was the turbo would probably be engineered around the 21.
Probably.
But it's also also that you went the 19 is a winter tire, right?
It is a winter tire from the same brand as my 21-inch OE, and it is Porsche N-Spec marked, just like the 21. So it is homologated for this vehicle. Porsche drove it and tuned this tire with the tire manufacturer.
Well, can we talk about a little bit about the winter tire? Is that necessarily going to be a harder or less? Is it always going to be a compromise tire from a summer? Like you can never buy a winter tire that like feels as good, drives as good.
Correct.
Right.
I had some Blizzaks on Mercedes that felt really good.
That's a traction thing, though. I mean,
they rode well. It was like,
I mean, the driving dynamic. So it's different than just the ride or just the sheer traction. Like, how does it feel in steering wheel? What's it like on center? Like, what's the how many degrees before something happens? And then what's the ramp up like? And is that linear? Does it curve? There's so many things, and they can make tiny changes to the diameter of the fabric in the tire, the angles of the various plies, so many things they can tune to fine tune that. A winter tire that's going to provide traction in real challenging winter weather, just by its nature, cannot be as precise and crisp in the way it feels and drives through the steering wheel as a performance or a summer tire can. Just can't.
Okay.
All season tires.
Yeah. What's your view?
Yeah. Where do we stand?
All weather, all season.
Well, I used to really, in my early testing days, I was such a tire snob. I still am, actually. But like jack of all trades, master of none, worse than the Swiss Army knife. Like you can't do anything well.
Right.
The paradigms are shifting, and they have been for a while.
So in other words, all seasons have gotten much better.
They have. And even before the real onslaught of I'm going to air quotes, all weather. So these are non-winter tires, but are capable enough in the snow to be rated with the three-peak mountain snowflake severe snow traction symbol. And that is simply a test, a spin test, how much longitudinal force can it generate on packed snow of a certain condition. And it can achieve the three-peak mark. Compounding technology is the real game changer that has been coming, but we've been seeing the change coming, the improvement in traction. All-season tires as a group are way better than they used to be. We are in the golden age of tires that can do everything. You know, we started going to Sweden to do testing in winter conditions back in 2009. And as I would track the performance of tires every year, we would take winter tires, mostly all-season tires. That's what most people in the U.S. drive on.
Right. Yeah.
And I would chart progress over time. And by like 2012, 2014, you could see the real game change starting, that more and more tires are getting closer to winter tire capability, more and more all-season tires.
Right.
And as a group, they're getting closer and closer together. And things have really changed.
So for the audience, to whom would you, because to your point, most people they don't even know what tires they have in the car, but they're probably all season or all weather tires. For whom do you say, absolutely, you guys should be switching to winter tires in the winter?
Or summer tires
now?
in the summer.
Yeah. Is there a specific geographic region of the U.S. where you're just like, you guys don't worry, all seasons are great, but you guys really should be putting on winter tires?
How much snow and ice do you get? Is it more than a day or two? How important is it that you have mobility no matter what the weather is? Can you stay home today, work from home? Do you have to be able to get to the office because you're a doctor? I mean, you tell me.
Okay.
You know, how critical is it that you can go no matter what? And the more critical it is that you can go no matter what,
right,
even if you don't get that much snow, winter tires are not for a condition, they're for a season. They're optimized to provide the best traction when the temperature is really cold.
Yeah.
So we've seen in our testing on the Teslas, the impact of temperature on range.
Right.
There's a glass transition point is the term of when the rubber isn't as flexible as it is at a warmer temperature. And that has a real impact on range, has a real impact on traction.
Okay. All right.
It's interesting to hear you say that all seasons have gotten so much better, because I remember I went on like a preview, a mule drive, as we call it, of the Macan EV, and Porsche Macan, and I was talking to them about tires, and we had the Macan Turbo, I think it's called. It was on summer tires, but offhandedly the engineer said, we engineer for summer, but 99% of these will be sold on all season. I was like, what? It's like, that's just how the Porsche dealers order them. I'm like, what? That's crazy.
Because the dealer knows their customer.
I guess so.
That's right.
Yeah.
And only 2% of their customers really want
performance.
The performance that is commensurate to a summer tire.
Right.
The performance level out of a Porsche N-Spec designated all-season tire is, I have to drive like an idiot to reach the limit of the all-season tires that came on my vehicle, my Porsche.
Yeah.
I mean, way beyond what I should be doing around the rest of the world,
sure,
the rest of the public.
Sure.
But you found the limit.
Well, we got some of us, Ed. We got to do that. Yeah. So, okay. So it's good to know, because I've chastised people. I'm just like, get a set of winter tires if you live in Buffalo, and they're like, well, there's not an all season, but.
I think a lot of people, it comes down to room. Where am I going to put them? Like, I put stack 4 tires in the garage.
No, hey, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
That is fair.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, this has been awesome. Let's take a moment to plug TireRack.com.
Mm-hmm.
The URL has not changed, right?
Nope.
Yep. If you can go, I actually went there recently. You can go, you can pop in your car, you can set up an account and save it and tell you when to get new tires. But truly, if you want to nerd out, kind of like we did this last hour, about tires and maybe what you should be thinking about for your vehicle, it's a great place to go. You can try on not just the tires, but the wheels too. They got a pretty good wheel selection. You can put some fancy Volks on there if you want. Anything else you want to tell people? Any other key takeaway, advice? It's getting colder.
Think about what you want your tire to do for you.
Okay.
And given how, where, and what you drive. And look for the tire that will deliver those things. I joke that TireRack.com is like the public library. We have all the information. You can go and get it for free. We democratize everything we know. We want people to be informed. And through that, I hope they'll make a choice to buy from us. But first and foremost, I want you to make a smart choice.
Yeah. And if the website's not doing it for you, he said they got 50 people online. You can get on call.
Telephones.
You can call them and actually
use a
talk
phone.
to people.
That's right.
If you're lonely.
Gen Z apparently doesn't like to talk on the phone.
Talk to folks about tires.
We got a
So,
problem.
Woody Rogers, Senior Vice President of Marketing. This was awesome. We'll have you back again. We ran out of time, but thank you so much for joining us, coming all this way to talk tires with us on The Inevitable.
And thanks for all the tires over the years. Woody used to be the guy when we were doing head-to-head and ignition. We needed tires for a track test or something.
You should have said that at the beginning. Yeah.
Well, you talk a lot, and it's hard to...
I talk a lot. Thank you, Woody.
Love it. Thank you.
The Inevitable Vodcast, brought to you by the all-electric Nissan Ariya. Inspired by the future, designed for the now.